I don't know if you've seen on D2L, I posted a thing yesterday afternoon and I sent an email too. And I just want to read it to make sure it's clear because I know part of it isn't. I think I mentioned this in class the other day. I'm going to give you the opportunity to revise one of your earlier papers and resubmit it. And this is what the email and post/read. I mentioned this in class Thursday, so here's the deal. You may revise one of your earlier papers and submit the revised paper along with the original marked up graded paper to possibly raise your grade 2 grade levels. So if you had a D, your grade could be raised to a B, if a C, A, etc. It's not an automatic increase. The revised paper must earn the higher grade. And let me editorially intervene for a moment to say, if at the very least you don't correct all the mistakes, it's not going to go up at all. And why? I'm not required to do this. I'm doing it out of the kindness of my heart. And I did this last spring in a class about this size. About half the students did it. And about half those students who did it literally made probably fewer than 50% of the corrections. Even when those corrections were simply things like misspellings, okay? Don't waste my time. Don't waste your time unless you're going to fix them all, okay? So the revised paper and original graded paper is due Tuesday, next Tuesday. You can skip the part that says because this is our last day of class. I originally was doing this for my Thursday night class this week, which this is our last night of class for that Thursday night class. Because next week's Thanksgiving and the following week after that is the study day. So we met like 11 times for this semester. So they're getting their final exam Thursday night. So again, if you want to possibly raise your grade on a single paper, not the semester grade, a bit, revise one of your earlier papers. That means at the very least to correct all the errors in the graded marked up paper and submit the revision, and I repeat it again, in the original graded marked up paper in class next Tuesday. If you just bring me with a revised paper and no graded marked up paper, I'll hand it back to you. I won't even look at it. I've got to have the graded marked up paper so I can compare the two, okay? So that's for Tuesday. All right, picking up with Lear. I'm hoping we're going to finish Lear today, but if not, we'll finish it on Thursday, and we'll just do the last 2 days on, I think we'll definitely do The Tempest. The final exam won't be a genre exam like the other exams have been, because it'll cover Hamlet, Lear, and The Tempest. And I'm kicking around the idea, I haven't decided, it's just somebody in my previous class, put the bug in my ear. I may actually give you the final exam next Tuesday so that if you want, you would have over Thanksgiving to work on it. I'll see. You'd still have until probably the Monday of finals week is when I'll have those due. Okay, so we left off with Act 3, Scene 4. I believe we very shortly or briefly discussed Act 3, Scene 3, where Edmund and Gloucester are talking, and Gloucester talks about the division between the dukes and the division among families, etc., etc. So, Act 3, Scene 4, we started to discuss Lear's speech beginning around 6 or so, or maybe we did discuss, we'll go ahead and pick up there. Kit wants Lear to go inside the little hovel because it's storming outside, it's cold, it's rainy, there's thunder and lightning. And Lear says, "Thou think'st 'tis much that this contentious storm invades us to the skin." That is, you think it's a great thing that this storm is so strong, so heavy, that we are soaked to our bones. Okay? So 'tis to thee. That is, it is to you, Kent, or Keys as he thinks he is. But where the greater malady is fixed, the lesser is scarce felt. Thou'st shun a bear, but if thy flight lay toward the roaring sea, thou'st meet the bear in the mouth. When the mind's free, the body's delicate. That is, when the mind is okay, when the mind isn't preoccupied with problems, what? Then you notice little things about the body. You notice little aches and pains. You notice little hunger pangs, things like that. This tempest in my mind doth from my senses take all feeling else, save what beats there. Beats, like there's just a pounding. And that makes Lear, he tells us, totally oblivious to the weather outside. It makes him oblivious to the rain beating down on his body. Filial ingratitude, that's what's beating in his mind. No good, rotten daughters. Is it not as this mouth should tear this hand for lifting food to it? But I will punish him. No, I'll weep no more. In such a night to shut me out, pour on, I will endure. Okay? Kent, let's go in. Go in thyself. Seek thine own ease. This tempest will not give me leave to ponder on things would hurt me more. Yeah. But I'll go in, and he says to the fool, you go in first, boy. Go first, you houseless poverty. You houseless poverty. You houseless poor thing. What do you mean, you houseless? Homeless. Okay. Why is the fool homeless? Because he's staying with Lear, and Lear has no home, right? He's no longer king, no longer has a palace. Part of his division of the kingdoms was, I'll live with this daughter 1 month and this daughter the next month. And both daughters have kicked him out. As long as he wants to have all of these knights with him, these large retinues. Okay? Go in, boy, you first. No, come, go. I'll pray out here, and then I'll come in and sleep. So they go in and sleep. Or they go in. And Lear gets a soliloquy. Now, bear in mind, even in madness, when a character has a soliloquy, we are hearing what the character really thinks. Okay? Poor, naked wretches, wheresoe'er you are, that bide the pelting of this pitiless storm, how shall your houseless heads and unfed sides, your looped and windowed raggedness, defend you from seasons such as these? Who's he talking about? He's not talking about himself. What did he call the fool? You houseless poverty. You houseless poor one. And then he looks at the fool go inside. He stays outside. And it's like he extrapolates from the fool to other homeless. I mean, look at his language again. Poor, naked wretches. Naked doesn't necessarily mean physically naked, having no clothing. It can also mean naked to the elements. No place to go in. Wherever you are, that by the pelting of this pitiless storm, who have to abide, who have to endure the pelting of what kind of storm? Pitiless, right? Storms don't have pity, they don't have mercy. Storms don't have hearts, they can't show compassion. How shall your houseless heads and unfed sides, so it's not only that they don't have homes to go in, it's also that they are thin, they're hungry. Your looped and windowed raggedness, kind of talking about the fraying of their clothing. How shall those things defend you from seasons, storms like these? Notice the moment of recognition. The very next sentence. Oh, I have taken too little care of this. What's he mean? I've taken too little care of this.
Take care of the poor when he was king.
Didn't take care of the poor. I didn't pay any attention to this problem. Take physic, Pomp. What does it mean, take physic? Physic here means take your medicine. Pomp. What's pomp? Royalty, ceremony, like Edward Elgar's Pomp and Circumstance, you know, the music that's played at graduations and such. He's saying, take your medicine. You who are used to everybody waiting on you hand and foot. Well, why is he out in the storm? Because he wouldn't go into one of his daughter's houses if he couldn't have his 100 knights with him. That's pomposity. Lear's a pompous ass. Okay? So, he's saying, I have to take my medicine. I have to live like they live. Who? Not they. The poor, who have no pomp. Okay? I have to endure this. Expose thyself to feel what wretches feel. Talk about empathy. I mean, this is real empathy. This isn't, oh, I hope you get better soon. I feel bad for you, but I'm going to go off and do what I want to do now and not have to suffer at all. This is Lear kind of what? Suffering in their place. Suffering with them. Identifying with them. Expose thyself to feel what wretches feel. What's the thyself referring to? Pomp. Okay? What's this say for 33 for pomp? Cure yourself, O distempered great ones. I don't know about the distempered great ones, but expose thyself to feel what wretches feel, that thou mayst shake the superflux to them, the superflux, the superfluity, all the things that the pompous ones, the high and mighty ones, have that they don't need, don't wear. A course I taught, I think I taught it 3 years in a row, several years ago. Early Christian literature of the Middle East, where we read a variety of writings of the early fathers and mothers of the church. And one of them was, a couple of them were homilies by John Chrysostom, early Archbishop of Constantinople. His last name, Chrysostom, means golden mouth. This guy could deliver a speech like nobody else could, so people gave him the nickname golden mouth. Well, anyways, Chrysostom and another one, a guy named St. Basil the Great. Okay. First one was John Chrysostom. They both deliver these homilies about clothing. Okay. One of them's in a little book called, or they're both in a little book called On Wealth and Poverty by this Orthodox publisher, St. Vladimir's Seminary Press. And anyways, in this little book on wealth and poverty, they talk about wealth and poverty. And Basil the Great has this one homily, and I don't remember the title of it. But I remember we read it in class, and we read it literally like 2 weeks before the end of the semester. And there were maybe 8 or 9 students in each of the classes. And it just blew their minds, okay? Because of what Basil the Great and Chrysostom and his both say about excess clothing. Basil the Great, for example, says, if you have more than one shirt, then you've stolen from somebody who doesn't have one. Stolen. That is, that other shirt you have, or if you were to walk into my closet, those 50 t-shirts, you know, those belong to the poor who don't have anything. Okay? I don't know that Shakespeare was familiar with either of these because I don't know that their works are translated into English at all in Shakespeare's. I'd have to look. But he's kind of saying the same thing. That thou may shake the superflux. What did he describe? What did he say about his one daughter's clothing?
It was useless to keep it warm, but she kept it for vanity.
Exactly. It was for vanity. It was gorgeous. Think of any Hollywood actress who lines up on the red carpet for, I don't care, the Academy Awards. Now, okay, it's Hollywood and it's February. It's not going to be very cold, usually. Let's move the Academy Awards to, I don't know, Chicago, and let's see them dressed like that. Middle of February, Chicago, 2 degrees below zero, often. And dress the little slinky, you know, low cut out. Ain't gonna happen. Why? Because vanity isn't enough to keep you warm. That thou may shake the superflux to them and show the heavens more just. What's he mean? Show the heavens more just. Well, look at your gloss for superflux. Superfluity with suggestion of flux, bodily discharge, introduced by physic, purgative. Okay? What he's saying here is this storm can teach us pompous fools. Who's the us there? I don't mean us pompous. This pomp, you guys are pompous fools. This pomp, he means those of us who are rich. It can teach us some things about what? What do you really need? And if you don't really need that other stuff, give it to those who do. Now, I said that this was Lear's recognition. It's a recognition. It's a, to use the Greek, anagnoresis, his kind of coming to himself. It doesn't last. He's going to go, you know what, crazy again very shortly. He kind of has moments of lucidity. This, however, is a key moment of lucidity. Because what does he realize? It goes back to before the beginning of the play. Even when I was king, I didn't do what a king should do. He's starting to realize, oops. It's when he fully realizes, oops, that he has the full recognition. That, according to Aristotle, a tragic hero must achieve. That is, a tragic hero can't die without realizing his or her mistake. They have to come to that realization in order for them to really be a tragic hero. And we hear Edgar, fathom and half. Well, let me back up. And show the heavens more just. What's to be more just? The heavens? Showing the heavens to be more just? You know, what did Hamlet say to Horatio? There is a divinity that there's a divinity that shapes our ends. Rough hew them as we will. Meaning, humanity acts and divinity, God, acts, and they act in tandem. Hand in glove. The only thing is, the hand isn't aware of the glove that's around it. The divinity that's doing its bit. Is that what he means? If we do this, then we will show that the heavens, and what does he mean by the heavens there? It doesn't mean Christianity. This is set in a pre-Christian world. The universe is what? Just. It's not mere happenstance. It's not all bad. It's not fate. That's one possible meaning. The other one is to show that we are more just than them. gods. Because what do the gods obviously, according to what Lear is saying, what do the gods obviously think about the poor, the homeless, the hungry, the needy, especially during storms? They don't care because they're still what? They're still poor. They're still homeless. They're still hungry. They're still needy. Okay? So we hear Edgar. Fathom and a half, poor Tom. And the fool comes running out from the hovel. Why? Because they didn't know Edgar was in there. Tom comes out. And Lear says, what's your problem? Oh, did you give everything to your daughters? He's crazy again. He had that moment of lucidity when he stopped thinking about his daughters. But now, who gives anything to poor Tom, whom the foul fiend hath led through fire, through flame, through ford and whirlpool, over bog and quagmire, etc., etc., etc. Okay? And Lear keeps going on about daughters, and Kent finally goes, oh, he doesn't have any daughters. It's not his daughters that made him crazy. Death traitor. Why death traitor? Nah, it's his daughters. Everybody goes crazy. It's because of their daughters. Daughters are the problem of the world, according to Lear's insanity. So, Lear asks Edgar, what hast thou been? Where are you frozen? A serving man, proud in heart and mind, that curled my hair, wore gloves in my cap. Wore gloves in my cap? What? Served the lust of my mistress' heart? Well, that makes sense. Did the act of darkness with her? That makes sense. Swore as many oaths as I spake words, and broke them in the sweet face of heaven. So if you swore as many oaths as you can make words, that means you swore oaths as easily as you speak, and broke them. So what kind of oaths were they? Springs to catch woodcocks, as Polonius would say. They were designed for one thing, just serve the lust of my mistress. Okay? One that slept in the contriving of lust, that is, dreamed about it, and waked to do it. My whole purpose in life was sex, Edgar says. Wine loved I deeply, dice dearly, and in woman out-paramored the Turk. So, wine, women, and gambling, I guess. False of heart, light of ear, bloody of hand, blah, blah, blah. So, Lear goes on and says, thou wert better in a grave than to answer with thy uncovered body this extremity of the skies. You'd be better off dead than to be out here. Is man no more than this? And he points to Tom. Consider him well. Thou owest the worm no silk, the beast no hide, the sheep no wool, the cat no perfume. Ha! There's three honors are sophisticated. Thou art the thing itself. What's the thing itself? Unaccommodated man. Unaccommodated. No clothing. That's the wool, the silk, the hide, the perfume. Unaccommodated man is no more but such a poor, bare, forked animal as thou art. And he starts ripping his clothes off. Why? Because Lear's kind of saying, I want to be base, just natural man. He wants to be that because he's crazy. And the fool says, no, stop, be contented. Okay? Gloucester comes in with a torch. And Edgar says, this is the foul fiend Flibbertigibbet. He begins at curfew, walks till the first. Okay. So Kent and Lear and Gloucester talk. Okay. Notice, who is Edgar as poor Tom? Well, Edgar is Gloucester's son. Gloucester doesn't recognize him. Why? Okay, he's dressed as a madman. Smudged his face. Okay. Kent explains this is the king. Gloucester's like, how does he? He's been better. So Gloucester says, 146, go in with me, that is, come to my house. My duty cannot suffer to obey in all your daughter's hard commands. My duty cannot suffer me to obey in all your daughter's hard. I can obey some. Well, what was one of the commands? Let him alone. Leave him out in the storm. I can't do that. Though their injunction be to bar my doors and let this tyrannous night take hold upon you, yet have I ventured to come seek you out to bring you where both fire and food is ready. Okay? So Lear says, let me talk to this philosopher, meaning Edgar. And Kent says, his wits begin to unsettle. Not begin. They've been unsettled. Gloucester, can you blame him? I mean, think about it. His daughters seek his death, and good Kent, he said it would be thus, poor banished man. Thou sayest the king grows mad, I'll tell thee, friend, I'm almost mad myself. I have a son, now outlawed from my blood. Edgar, who he's talking about, he sought my life, but lately, very lately. I loved him, friend. No father his son dearer. Go back for a moment. Beginning of the play. We see Kent and Gloucester speaking. Edmund comes in, or Edmund's there, and they're speaking. Stop talking. And Kent says, line 8, is not this your son, my lord? His breeding, sir, hath been at my charge. That is, I've been accused of being his father. I have so often blushed to acknowledge him that now I am braced to it. I'm used to accept. I cannot conceive you. What do you mean? His young fellow's mother could. Whereupon she grew round-wombed and had indeed, sir, a son for a cradle, ere she had a husband for a bed. In other words, he's a bastard. I cannot wish the fault undone, the issue of it being so proper. I have a son, sir, by order of law, some year elder than this, who yet is no dearer in my account. Well, how has he just described Edmund? How dear is he to him? Not very. And the one that was born lawfully, a year elder, I don't really love him much more. Now, he says, I loved him. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, maybe. No father his son dear. True to tell thee, the grief hath crazed my wits. I'm kind of going crazy too because of what I've heard about Edgar. Okay? So, they make their way, and Edgar gives us the title of a famous poem by Byron, almost went out, and the premise for Stephen King's interminably long Dark Tower series. He just needs to die, so he'll stop saying and doing anything about it. Child Roland to the Dark Tower came. His word was still the five foe and fum. I smell the blood of the British man. Okay? Some people say that's where we get the fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman. All right, so we see Cornwall and Edmund, Act 3, Scene 5. Edmund with the letter and such. Okay? They're plotting. Act 3, Scene 6. Kent and Gloucester come in. And Gloucester says, here's better than the open air. Take it thankfully. I will piece out the comfort with what addition I can. I will not be long. Kent, all the power of his wits had given way to his impatience. Now, earlier, we heard the two daughters talk about Lear's rashness. And one of the daughters, Regan, I think it was, said, he hath ever been rash. Even in his youth, he was rash. Now, the gods reward your kindness. May the gods reward you, Gloucester, for your kindness. Kind of interesting that he implies the gods would be rewarding like that. Okay? So, we hear the Fool and Lear talk a bit, and I want to pick up with 33. Kent goes in to Lear, And he says, how do you do, sir? Stand you not so amazed? Will you lie down and rest upon the cushions? Come on, lie down, rest. And if you've watched the Amazon/BBC version, I mean, this scene is really, really well done with Anthony Hopkins. Because half the time he's talking to the air, even though the fool's there. Okay? So they sit, and Lear and the fool go back and forth. And Kent says, line 54, 5, 6, 57. Oh, pity, sir, where's the patience now that you so oft have boasted to retain? Edgar, my tears begin to take his part so much they mar my counterfeiting. I have so many tears. What's he mean, they mar my counterfeiting? I think he means they're wiping what he's put on his face. They're going to recognize me. The little dogs and all. Trey, Blanche, sweetheart. See, they bark it. Well, there aren't any little dogs there, but in Lear's mind there are. Okay. Kent, now, good my lord. Lie down. Rest a while. Go to sleep. Lear, lying on cushions. Make no noise, make no noise. Draw the curtain, so we'll go to supper. He thinks what? He thinks he's back in his royal palace. He's being put on his bed. The curtains around the giant four-poster are being drawn. Go sometime, if you ever have the opportunity, go to Hampton Court Palace in Richmond, outside London. Okay? And go in the room that has Henry VIII's bed. One of Henry VIII's bed. I'm not kidding. That bed is literally about the size of that table where Justin's at, over to this wall to back there. One bed. Big old, like 6-inch massive beams for the four posts. And not just, little thin, thick curtains that close that thing off. Okay? Imagine that as kind of what Lear thinks he is. They're in a hut, essentially, still. Okay? So, Gloucester calls Kent. Kent says, shh, his wits are gone. Good friend, I prithee, take him in thy arms. I have overheard a plot of death upon him. There's a litter ready. Lay him in it, drive toward Dover, friend, where thou shalt meet both welcome and protection. Take up thy master. If thou shouldst dally half an hour, his life with thine, and all that offer to defend him stand in assured loss. Word has reached me here, they're coming for him. Okay? Kent, oppressed nature sleeps. That is, Lear is so oppressed, his body is so oppressed, it shut down. That's the sleeping. This rest might yet have balmed thy broken sinews. Kent is saying, sometimes what do people simply need? Sleep. Sleep. Good, long sleep. Which, if convenience will not allow, stand in hard cure. So, they pick up Lear, and they all leave. And Edgar gets a soliloquy. When we our betters see bearing our woes. Now, that could mean when we see those who are higher than us bearing the same problems, the same afflictions we bear, or when we see them bearing the woes that should be ours, bearing our burdens, in other words, we scarcely think our miseries our foes. Who alone suffers what? Suffers most in the mind. Who suffers most in the mind? The person who's alone. We all hear misery loves company. Why? Why does misery love company? So that you can throw a pity party together with somebody else? No, it's because that company helps do what? Relieve the burden. Yeah, the other person might be a sad sack too. But what does that at least do to you? I'm not the only one. But if you're all alone, read Samuel Johnson's Rasselas, or The Prince of Abyssinia. Great little short story / poem. Because there's a scene in Rasselas where the character Rasselas, if I remember correctly, it's been 30 years since I've read this thing. He meets an old, wise kind of philosopher-like guy. And the guy describes the descent into madness. And how does it begin? It begins when somebody shuts himself or herself off from other people. And the mind then does what? Rather than looking outward, it turns inward. And because the mind is voracious, it just starts to eat what's there. And the person goes mad from not having an outlet. Not being able to essentially get it off the chest, so to speak. Who alone suffers most in the mind, leaving free things and happy shows behind. Happy shows. Walking out and, yeah, everything's fine. Everything's good today. Okay? But then the mind much sufferance doth o'erskip when grief hath mates and bearing fellowship. When people can suffer together. Suffer there meaning endure. Help each other along the path. How light and portable my pain seems now. Well, what is Edgar's pain? It's not light, right? Dad wants to kill me. And my brother wants to kill me too. How light and portable my pain seems now, when that which makes me bend makes the king bow. That is, the weight on the king is so much, he's just fallen over. Me, I'm strong enough, I can bend with it. He childed as I fathered Tom away. That is, I'm not going to be Tom of Bedlam anymore. Mark the high noises and thyself bewray when false opinion whose wrong thoughts defile thee, in thy just proof repeals and reconciles thee. What will happen more tonight? Safe scape the king. He's saying we got to save the king. Okay? 3:7. Cornwall speaks to Goneril. Post speedily to my lord your husband, show him this letter. Who is Goneril's husband? Albany. Okay? The army of France has landed. Seek out the traitor Gloucester. Regan, hang him instantly. Pluck out his eyes. Well, we're going to see those eyes being plucked out. Cornwall, leave him to my displeasure. Edmund, keep you our sister company. Edmund would very much like to keep Goneril company. He'd also like to keep Regan company. See, that's what neither Cornwall nor Albany realize, is that their wives are cheating on them. Maybe not physically yet. Okay? But Edmund's definitely working both on and with them. Okay? So Oswald comes in and says Gloucester has conveyed the king. Hence, okay, Gloucester comes in and says, line 31, what means your graces, good my friends, consider you are my guests, do me no foul play. They're at Gloucester's house. Okay, so they bind him. Regan comes up, plucks his beard. We actually interviewed somebody for a job a couple of years ago, and she'd written a book on hair in the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. And one of the elements in her book was this idea of plucking the beard. And that's essentially like shooting the middle finger to somebody. Okay? So a little bit more painful, I think. But anyways, they bind him to a chair. Gloucester, by the kind gods, 'tis most ignobly done to pluck me by the beard. Okay? And what do we see happen? Gloucester says, when he tells them, they took Lear to Dover. Why did I take him to Dover? Line 59, I think it is. Because I would not see thy cruel nails pluck out his poor old eyes, nor thy fierce sister in his anointed flesh rash boorish fangs. The sea, with such a storm as his bare head and hell black night endured, would have buoyed up and quenched the stellid fires. Yet poor old heart he hoped the heavens to rain. If wolves had at thy gate howled that dern time, thou shouldst have said, good porter, turn the key, all cruels else subscribe. If you had seen Lear the way I had seen Lear, you would have opened the door and let him in. Cornwall, see shalt thou never. Hold the chair. Upon these eyes of thine I'll set my foot. Gloucester calls for help. Servants hold the chair, and we're told Cornwall grinds out one of Gloucester's eyes with his boot. So he raises his leg up, raises the heel of his foot, and sticks it in his eye and just grinds. I don't think I've ever seen a production of Lear where it's done that way. The way I've seen it is he sticks his foot up and pushes his foot against his chest and then reaches in 2 fingers. Behind the eye, pops it out, usually with that kind of sound. Okay? Regan, one side will mock the other too. And then a servant intervenes. This is too much. Okay? And the servant says to Regan, if you did wear a beard upon your chin, I'd shake it on this quarrel. What do you mean? If you were a man, I'd fight you, but you're not. Cornwall draws his sword. The villain servant draws his. They fight. Cornwall is wounded. Regan cries to another servant, give me thy sword. She takes the sword. She runs at the servant from behind. Stabs him literally in the back. Okay? And then Cornwall goes up to Gloucester and says, lest it see more, talking to Gloucester's other eye, prevent it. I'll stop it. Out, jelly. And he gouges out his other eye. Now, usually, if you're doing this on a stage, it's kind of done with Gloucester's back to the stage. Because it's kind of hard to pop somebody's eyeballs out on the stage. It really looking like eyeballs. But then he turns around, and his eyes are blackened, and there's just gore dripping down his face. Okay? Gloucester, line 88, all dark and comfortless. I don't see, and now I'm totally without any comfort. Where's my son Edmund? Edmund, enkindle all the sparks of nature to quit. That is, Edmund, like Hamlet Sr., avenge thy father. And they're like, you stupid fool, Thou call'st on him that hates thee. It was he that made the overture of thy treasons to us, who is too good to... You're calling on the one who wants you dead. Oh, my follies, then. Now I see. Like Oedipus, it takes Gloucester to become physically blind before he can mentally, spiritually see. Kind gods, forgive me that, and prosper him, Edgar. Okay? So they thrust him out. They let him go on to Dover. Why? He's a blind guy. What good is he going to do? So we see Edgar. And Edgar says, nice little speech, yet better thus, as Tom, yet better thus and known to be condemned than still condemned and flattered. To be worse, the lowest and most dejected thing of fortune, stand still in espérance. What's espérance? Hope. If you're at the bottom of fortune's wheel, things can't get any worse, can they? All you have to do is go up from there. The lamentable change is from the best, the worst returns to laughter. Welcome then thou unsubstantial air that I embrace. In other words, I'm at the bottom. I can live here. It's not going to get any worse. And then he sees Gloucester. And Gloucester says to the old man who's leading him, I have no way and therefore want no eyes. I have no way. I have no path. I have no road. What's he mean? I'm not going anywhere. If you have no way, you have no road, you have no path, you have no street, you have no destination. Doesn't mean you're just wandering. It means there's no way forward. What's Gloucester mean? I might as well die. Notice this comes right after Edgar talking about being at the bottom. All that's left, hope. Gloucester has no hope. Full oft 'tis seen, our means secure us, and our mere defects prove our commodities. Your gloss tells you, our prosperity makes us proudly overconfident, whereas the sheer afflictions we suffer prove beneficial. And then your gloss says, by teaching us humility. I don't know about the by teaching us humility part in this context. Oh, dear son Edgar, the food of thy abused father's wrath. You fed my wrath. Why? Because I was abused. I was misinformed. Might I but live to see thee in my touch, I'd say I had eyes again. Notice, he does have a little bit of hope. If I could just touch Edgar's face, he's like, I would be able to see again. He doesn't mean literally. The old man, who's there? Oh gods, who is it can say I am at the worst? Edgar thought I'd reach bottom. And then what does he see? Dead, with his eyes put out, and kind of thinking of suicide. Bottom just dropped out. Notice what that means, though. Who is it can say, I am at the worst. I am worse than ever I was. So no matter how bad it feels, don't ever think you're at the bottom. Because once you do, boom, the bottom's going to drop out again. So Gloucester asks, who is it? Is Beggarman? He goes, yeah, madman and beggar too. Gloucester, well, he has some reason, else he could not beg. He can't be totally mad, or he wouldn't beg. In the last night's storm, I such a fellow saw. He's remembering when he saw Lear and Kent and the beggar, which made me think a man a worm. My son came then into my mind, and yet my mind was then scarce friends with him. Last night I saw a man. Made me think of my son. But my son wasn't friendly in my mind then. I have learned more since. As flies to wanton boys are we to the gods. They kill us for their sport. Now, I do not abide at all by identity politics, identity reading of literature, whatever. But I think to understand this, you got to understand something, and man, I'm not going to ascribe this to you, I'll ascribe it to myself. You got to understand something about some boys. That is, we can be sadistic little bastards. He's as flies to wanton boys. He's talking about things like catching a fly and pulling the wings off. My grandfather taught me when I was real young, like 6 years old, made a visit out to the Midwest from California to visit grandparents. Taught us how to pull wings off lightning bugs and make rings out of them. Stick the bug on you, you'd walk around and the bug would light up. Never thought about the poor bug, He says, we to the gods are like the bugs to the little boys. They kill us for what? Their sport, their pleasure. Notice what that tells us about Gloucester's view of human life to the universe. Are we the highest form of creation? No. We're what? Zip, nil, nada. We don't mean jack squat. Edgar, how should this be? I think Edgar hears that and he's like, what? That's not my father. Because what did his father say before? What did he say when he had the conversation with Edmund and he talked about eclipses, shows of stars and such? For him, everything happened according to a plan. There was order to the universe. But because he found out the one son lied to him, there's no order anymore. Nothing makes sense. Is that the naked fellow? Aye, my lord. Prithee, get thee gone. If for my sake thou wilt overtake us hence a mile or twain, I'll the way toward Dover, do it for ancient love. And bring some covering for this naked soul, which I'll entreat to lead me. He's mad. It's okay. So, Gloucester asks Edgar/Tom, you know the way to Dover? Stile and gate, horseway and footpath. Yep, I know every stile. You know what a stile is? You have a fence, okay, that's like this. Well, and then you have a little thing that looks like this. Here's the rest of the fence so that you can climb up, hop over the fence. In Britain, you've got all these footpaths. And it's British law, if that footpath goes through somebody's private property, they have to maintain a stile over the fence so that they can follow that footpath, even across private property. Okay? So, he says, yep, I know the way, I know all the paths, etc. He says, well, take me. He gives Tom a purse. Thou whom the heavens' plagues have humbled to all strokes, that I am wretched, makes thee the happier. Heavens deal so still. Let the there's that word again. Let the superfluous and lust dieted, that is, lust fed, man that slaves your ordinance, that will not see because he does not feel. What did Lear say when he was out in the storm? He identified with the poor. Why? Because at that moment, he's not lust-fed. Lust there doesn't just mean sex. It means any desires of the flesh, like food. Okay? Let them feel your power quickly. You know, Dover? Aye. There's a cliff, whose high and bending head looks fearfully in the confined deep. Bring me but to the very brim of it, and I'll repair the misery thou dost bear with something rich about me. That is, I'll find something on my person to give to you. That'll be wealthy. Okay? 4-2, we see Goneril come in, and the bastard, Edmund. Okay, now, what has happened to Regan's husband? Regan's husband is Cornwall. Goneril's husband is Albany. He got stabbed, right? By the servant? Okay. So, Goneril says, then shall you go no further. Line 11, it is the cowish terror of his spirit that dares not undertake. He'll not feel wrongs which time to an answer. Our wishes on the way may prove effects. Back Edmund to my brother, hasten his musters, conduct his powers, that is, make him suck it up, get him to do our will, give the distaff into my husband's hands. This trusty servant shall pass between us. So she gives him a favor. She kisses him, they kiss, etc. Okay. They talk about Gloucester. Albany shows up and says, line 30, O Goneril, you are not worth the dust which the rude wind blows in your face. That's pretty low. That's actually one of Shakespeare's worst put-downs. And Shakespeare, I mean, he's the master of the put-down. I fear your disposition. That is, your nature, the way you were made. That nature which contemns its origin cannot be bordered certain in itself. What's he mean? That nature which condemns its origin. She's condemned her father. He's saying that nature, your kind of nature, cannot be what? Cannot be content with what it has. He's kind of going, I've got a bullseye on my back. I don't trust you. She that herself will sliver and disbranch from her material sap perforce must wither and come to deadly use. Stop. Wisdom and goodness to the vile seem vile. Filths savor but themselves. What have you done? Tigers, not daughters, what have you performed? What have you done to your father? What have you done to Gloucester, a father and a gracious aged man? It's not the same thing. Lear's the father. I think the gracious aged man, that's Gloucester, whose reverence even the headlock bear would lick. You should have revered these men. Most barbarous, most degenerate, have you madded. Notice, degenerate. What's he mean by that? Out, away from. Generate, your generation. You have fallen away from your nature. It's like Hamlet's calling Claudius unkind, unnatural. You made them both mad. That's to have you madded. Could my good brother suffer you to do it? A man, a prince? If that the heavens do not their visible spirits send quickly down to tame these vile offenses, it will come. That is, if the heavens don't bring judgment down on you, judgment will come. How? Humanity must perforce prey on itself like monsters of the deep. And if humanity preys on itself like monsters of the deep, then what does humanity come? That Lear has alluded to several times. Nothing but beasts. Goneril. Milk-livered man. What's she mean? Coward. You wimp. That bearest a cheek for blows, a head for wrongs. You don't think right. In your cheek, it's only good to be slapped. Who hast not in thy brows an eye discerning thine honor from thy suffering that thou knowest, that not knowest. Fools do those villains pity who are punished ere they have done their mischief. Fools do those villains pity who are punished, what? Before they've done their mischief. Where's thy drama? France is already here. She's saying what? You've got to strike while the iron's hot. You've got to act. Then take whatever comes. See thyself, devil. Proper deformity shows not in the fiend so horrid as in a woman. He's saying, when a woman goes bad, that's the worst thing there is. Kind of an anti-feminist thing. Why? Well, there's all this anti-feminist literature in the Middle Ages. And some in Shakespeare's day. Not nearly as much because of, she who sits upon the throne and, must not be named. Queen Elizabeth, because she would have your tongue cut out. She would have your fingers cut off, etc. But the anti-feminist literature traces its origins ultimately where? The woman whom you gave me, she gave me to eat. Adam blames it all on Eve. Okay? O vain fool, thou changed and self-covered thing, for shame be monster not thy feature. She's changed and self-covered. She's trying to remake herself. He's saying you can't. Were it my fitness to let these hands obey my blood, they are apt enough to dislocate and if it were up to me, I'd rip you to shreds. However thou art a fiend, a woman's shape doth shield thee. Back when the ideas of chivalry still ruled no matter what. Even if she were, I don't know if you're familiar with play, even if she were Lady Macbeth, she's actually kind of worse than Lady Macbeth. He says, and I caught you with the dagger in your hand, and the blood, I wouldn't kill you then. Far cry from our society, which, she'd be blown away immediately. Okay? So, messenger comes in tells Albany to tell them Duke of Cornwall's dead. Why? Gloucester's faithful servant, when he stabbed him, worked. Okay. And the messenger talks about Gloucester's eyes. And the messenger says, a servant that he, Gloucester, bred, thrilled with remorse, overcome with remorse, opposed against the act, bending his sword to his great master, who, thereat enraged, flew on him, and amongst them felled him dead, but not without that harmful stroke which since hath plucked him after. So the servant died too. Albany. This shows you are above you justicers. Gloucester said, what about the gods? They're like little boys with flies who sport with us. Albany says, no, there are gods. And they're gods of justice. Why? Cornwall got what he had coming to him. How? He died. What did he die for? Putting out Gloucester's eyes. And he would probably even say, and the servant who stabbed Cornwall, he died too. Why? Because he took up arms against one better than him. Oh, Lord. Yeah, he did it for good reason, but you got to pay the piper, So speedily can avenge. Oh, poor Gloucester. Lost he his other eye. He says, yep, they're both gone. Okay? Goneril's thinking, oh, this is good. This is good. Why? I'm a widow now. Edmund and I, shit, but there's my sister. I got to take care of her. Okay? Albany finishes that scene. Gloucester, I live to thank thee for the love thou show'st the king and to revenge thine eyes. Albany's kind of shown what? Between the points where Lear is not welcomed into either of the two daughters' homes to here. Kind of a change of character. Kind of a change of heart. Now he says what? I'm glad Gloucester has shown mercy to the king, has, as he puts it, showed to thank thee for the love thou showedst the king. He's glad the king's alive. Albany's going to be alive at the end. They're going to say, you reign. Okay? But Albany's going to say, no, not for me. I'm kind of guilted by the taint of everything that happened. Guilty by the taint. Okay? So, 4-3, Kent comes in with a gentleman. They talk about Lear's distressed in the town, line 39 and so. And again, I mean, if you've not watched it, I really, really recommend that Amazon version with Anthony Hopkins, because the scene of him just kind of walking around in the town, people kind of going, let's make a little buffer around him so he doesn't do anything crazy, but they let him move. Okay. 4-4, we see Cordelia again. Okay. And she sees Lear. And she sees how crazy he is. And the gentleman tells her, beginning line 11 and following, there is a way to heal Lear. We can bring him back. Our foster nurse of nature is repose. Now, that has two meanings. Notice it's a foster nurse. Foster means it's not the real nurse, it's a stand-in. So how is repose a stand-in? Well, repose has two meanings. One of them is sleep, right? Sleep repairs the body. It's why we need it. Okay? It's sleep, however, is also a foster nurse. Why? It's an image of something else, which also is the nurse of nature, death. How is death the nurse of nature? Well, Shakespeare's audience, not the time in which the play is set, pre-Christian Britain, but his audience, very Christian Britain, would hear that, and they would hear echoes of sleep and death. And what comes for the believer after that great sleep? You wake up to resurrection, life eternal. What kind of life? Life without distraction, life without pain, all the stuff spoken about at the end of, the book of Revelation and such. Our foster nurse of nature is repose, the which he lacks repose, he lacks rest. Give Lear some really good, Ambien or something, Xanax, just let him go down. Give him a Valium and let him sleep it off. Literally, that's what he's talking about. John Donne has a poem, one of his holy sonnets, that has as a line in it, and poppies or charms can make us sleep as well. This is in the poem, Death be not proud, for God hath, for thou art not so. Okay? And poppy or charms can make us sleep as well and better than you. Poppy and charms. Okay, this is written in like the early 1600s. He's talking about drugs. He says, drugs are pretty good, man. But they're better even than you. Death. Why? Because we will wake up from those. We'll wake up from real death. So he goes on. That to provoke in him are many simples operative. Simples, flowers, medicinal herbs. We can mix some stuff up and he'll sleep off. Chamomile tea, She goes, all right. All blessed secrets, all you unpublished virtues of the earth, spring with my tears. Spring, water them, let my tears be mixed up with these herbs. Be aidant and remediate in the good man's distress. Okay. So, skip the rest of that. 4-5, we got Regan and Oswald come in and they talk back and forth. 4-6, Edgar and Gloucester. Edgar is now leading Gloucester to Dover Beach. Okay. And about line 11, Edgar says, all right, we're here. Now, they've got to be close enough. Sorry, not Dover Beach. Dover's Cliffs. They've got to be close enough where Gloucester can hear off in the distance the sound of the ocean coming in and going out. He's got to be able to hear the sound of the waves. Otherwise, he's not going to believe him at all. He goes, wow. Fearful and dizzy 'tis to cast one's eyes so low. And it's never good. In fact, most of Dover Cliffs, they're fenced off. Why? Because damn fools go up to the edge of the cliff and the ground gives beneath them. It's, several hundred feet fall to their deaths. So he says, dizzy to cast one's eyes so low. The crows and choughs that wing the mid-air show scarce so gross as beetles. The crows and choughs that are between where we're standing and the ocean down below, they look like beetles. They're so small. Okay? Gloucester. Well, put me where you are. Come on, give me your hand. You're now within a foot of the extreme verge. So, one small step for man, All beneath the moon would I not leap upright. Let go of my hand. And he gave him a purse. He says, there's a jewel in there, well worth a poor man's taking. Fairies and gods prosper it with thee. May they bless you. What has he already said about the gods? They make sport of us. So has he suddenly had a change of heart? Oh, may the gods bless. No, this is like, go do what you want. He doesn't believe in the gods as being helpful. Not yet. It's going to change. Go further off. Bid me farewell. Let me hear you going. Edgar, I'm going. It's usually what he does on the stage, even though, according to where they are, he's stomping in what? Sod, grass. You're not going to hear it. Okay? Then he's like, I'm going. I'll see you later. So Gloucester stands there. Oh, you mighty gods, this world I do renounce, and in your sights shake patiently my great affliction off. What's he mean? He shakes patiently his great affliction off. What's his great affliction? What language does Hamlet use about suicide in Act 3, Scene 1? To shake off this mortal coil. That's the affliction. Flesh. Flesh is the affliction. To be bound. To have the spirit bound. You know, Hamlet says, I could be bound in a nutshell. Be a king of infinite space. Were it not for dreams. Well, there's a parallel to that. The mind is that king of infinite space, bound in the nutshell. And what happens? Dreams come from outside. So, in your sight, shake patiently my great affliction off. Does he? What's patient mean? You endure. You endure. He's not enduring. What's he getting ready to do? Swan dive. If I could bear it longer and not fall to quarrel with your great opposeless wills, my snuff and loathed part of nature should burn itself out. Notice what he's saying there. I'm done. I can't take any more. Why? Because of your great and opposeless wills. Fate. Fate, he's saying, has so hedged and boxed me in. Can't get any worse. If Edgar live, bless him. And he says, now, fellow, fare thee well. And he falls forward. And Edgar, gone, sir. And he says, what? He revives. What are you, sir? Away, let me die. What does Gloucester think has happened? Oh, I just fell, but I didn't fall off the cliff. I just fell, landed on my face. Edgar, what are you? Hadst thou been aught but gossamer, feathers, air, so many fathom down precipitating, thou'd shivered like an egg. If you had been air, if you had been gossamer, if you had been an egg, you'd have splat like an egg. What kind of being are you? Hast heavy substance? Bleeds not? Speaks? Art sound? 10 masts at each make not the altitude which thou hast perpendicularly fell. Okay? Your gloss doesn't give us it at each, end to end. Well, a mast is going to be at least, Shakespeare's day, 25, 40 feet tall. So 250 to 400 feet, you fell. And you're not bleeding, and you're talking. Thy life's a miracle. Notice, Not, this is a miracle. Your life is a miracle. The fact that you live is a miracle. In the 7th Harry Potter book, Christmas morning, in that book, the day after Harry has a battle of sorts with Lord Voldemort, and his wand is destroyed. Harry wakes up. It's Christmas morning. And he's at the lowest point he will ever get in all 7 books. He thinks the one thing that can protect him against Lord Voldemort is now gone, his wand. And we're told he thinks, as he looks out into this beautiful scenery, that he is totally insignificant and the universe doesn't give a rat's ass about him. And yet the narrator says, and he should have felt, what a wonder, what a miracle to be alive. As the narrator gives us this description of looking out over these snow-covered hillsides and down into a little valley, and there's a little church, and Harry can hear the Christmas carols from the little church. It's like he's looking down into a Thomas Kincaid building. And he should be filled with, this is pretty. And instead, my life is totally meaningless. Well, Edgar says, as the narrator there says, life's a miracle. Speak again. He's almost saying, by saying speak again, he's saying, speak to me, O great wise prophet, Tell me what it is I must. Have I fallen? Yeah. All the way from the dread summit down here to this chalky bottom. Look up. I have no eyes. Is wretchedness deprived that benefit to end itself by death? Is wretchedness denied suicide? Interesting question. 'Twas yet some comfort when misery could beguile the tyrant's rage and frustrate his proud will. The ancient Romans, Shakespeare, had he written it yet? Shakespeare will write, somewhere in here, Julius Caesar, turn over. Antony Cleopatra, 1607, 1608. Lear's written in 1605. He's going to write Antony and Cleopatra, and what do we see Antony and Cleopatra do at the end of that play? They each kills each other. Why? It's not for love of the other, it's partially love for the other, but it's so that Caesar can't kill them. It's to deny the tyrant's rage. Okay? He's saying, can't we do that in our day and age? Edgar, give me your arm. He lifts him up. How do you feel? Fine. Wow, this is strange. What was the thing I saw you with? Poor unfortunate beggar. Well, from down here looking up there, methought his eyes were 2 full moons. He had 1,000 noses, horns whelked and waved like the enrigid sea. It was a fiend. You were led to that edge by a devil. Therefore, thou happy father. He's calling him father simply because of his age, not because he's Tom's father. Therefore, thou happy father, think, that is, believe, that the clearest gods who make them honors of men's impossibilities have preserved thee. The gods have saved you from the fiend that I saw. Gloucester, I do remember now. Remember what? Remember what he used to think about the gods. Henceforth, from this point on, I'll bear affliction till it do cry out itself, enough, enough, and die. I'll bear affliction until affliction does what? Kills me. How did the play begin? What does Lear say? I'm going to divest my kingship unto you so I can what? Crawl unburdened toward death. Crawl, not walk. So that I can die. Okay? That thing you speak of, I took it for a man. Often 'twould say, the fiend, the fiend. He led me to that place. Edgar. Bear free and patient thoughts. What's he mean, bear free and patient thoughts? Free? How can thoughts be free? How can thoughts be not free? Bound to something else? Free, open thoughts. Okay? What about patient? What's it mean to be patient? To suffer, to endure. Just take what comes. Free there means guiltless. Well, now what does he say about the gods? Well, he's going to say something later about the gods not being so bad. Okay? It is, let's see, we were still in 4:6. So the king comes in and Gloucester says, I know that voice. And Lear keeps on going. And Gloucester says again, the trick of that voice, line 106. I do well remember it. Is it not the king? Aye, every inch a king. When I do stare, see how the subject quakes. Well, who's quaking around him? Nobody. I pardon that man's life. What was thy cause? That is, why was he given a capital charge? Adultery. Thou shalt not die for it. Die for adultery now. The wren goes to it. Small gilded fly does lecture in my sight. Let copulation thrive. Why? For Gloucester's bastard son was kinder to his father than my daughters got 'tween the lawful sheets. See, Lear doesn't know that. His bastard son wasn't kinder. To it luxury pell-mell, for I lack soldiers. That is, have sex. Why? I need knights. So get busy. Whose face between her forks presages snow? What myth going on about his daughters again? Gloucester says, let me kiss that hand. And Lear goes, let me wipe it off first. It smells of mortality. It smells of death. Oh, ruined piece of nature. Gloucester's saying this about Lear, ruined piece of nature. What's this tell us about Gloucester? His transformation at the hands of Edgar is real. See, Edgar's really gotten him to change his outlook. This great world shall so wear out to naught. Dost thou know me? I remember your eyes. What's the cause? What would the cause of case of eyes? Line 144. Oh, are you there with me? No eyes in your head? You see how this world goes. I see it feelingly. Yep, now Gloucester sees. Not with his eyes. He feels how this world goes. Art mad? A man may see how this world goes with no eyes. Look with thine ears. See how yon justice rails upon yon simple thief. What's he mean? I think that could be where Victor Hugo got the idea for Les Miserables. What does Jean steal? A loaf of bread. And for that he gets sentenced for 20 years to prison. That's not justice. Okay? And we've got to stop. So we will pick up there. So we will definitely finish Lear. We'll finish Lear quickly, actually. On Thursday, because there's not a whole lot more. So we'll finish Lear on Thursday, and maybe go ahead and start, I don't know, first act or so of The Tempest. Thank you. Don't forget, Tuesday, the revised paper, if you're going to revise it, with the original copy. And I'll decide, and I'll let you know. If I don't let you know, I'll just bring it on Tuesday of next week. I might bring the final exam. We'll still have class the Tuesday after Thanksgiving.